Hello everyone, it's me Tabo and welcome to another episode of Coding for Superheroes. So in today's episode, I will be talking about my game development project that I started using the Threejs editor. So I'll be bringing everything to its final conclusion. So in this session, I will be sharing all the things that I learned, things that I struggled with, and overall give my opinion of what is possible with the Threejs editor and what is not. And so before I continue, I'll just say if you are new to this channel, then be sure to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can be notified for upcoming tutorials. So my project entailed these particular features: a character controller, third-person camera, collision detection, UI system, particle system, object state management system. So one thing that I want to make clear is, from my own experience, I've realized that the Threejs editor is mainly just a playground for you to practice your coding skills without having to code everything, especially simple things like setting up your scene or even adding objects to your scene. So Threejs editor is actually good for that because you can just have all the necessary game objects inside your scene and then mainly focus on coding. One other use I think it is good for is using it as an option between Threejs and Blender. If you know about the Blender 3D software, what I've noticed with using Blender is that sometimes the lights seem to be blown out. Somehow the values do not always translate well to Threejs. I don't know if other people have this problem. So when I bring it into the Threejs editor, then I'm able to make tweaks to those lights, because if I just import it, then there's no easy way of tweaking the lights except for doing everything in code, even if you just want to move the lights a bit. So it is quite useful. And so when it comes to the challenges, the first challenge that I will mention is with add-ons. You don't have the add-ons that you normally have in your Threejs project because everything needs to be imported, right? You import your Threejs library module and the add-ons in addition. In the editor, only the Threejs module is available, but the other add-ons are not by default. But you can include them by going to the main index file, and then in there is a way of going about it. You basically import it, and then in order to expose it to your console, then you have to include it in the window class. You have to add it as a property, and then only then, once you've done that, you'll be able to then instantiate it inside your script. Besides importing of modules, the one thing that I find difficult is the way that you script. Using the editor's IDE is the only option for coding. You cannot use an external editor. There is no possibility of seamlessly integrating another editor into the Threejs editor. So everything is done within the Threejs editor, but the problem is that it lacks some of the basic functionality like predictive text. For instance, in VS Code, you're able to toggle between hiding and showing large amounts of content to make screen space so that code that you're not working on does not have to be visible. Such features do not exist, so in the end you have a whole lot of code that you constantly have to be scrolling through. There is no easy way of navigating your code. You just have a whole lot of information that you have to sift through when you're looking for a particular problem. So I find that to be rather cumbersome. Okay, second would be creating a UI system. This was challenging because there aren't any examples that you can refer to actually understand how you would go about doing this. So I had to figure it out through trial and error. The editor has some global variables, and one of them was the player variable. Now the player allows you to then have access to the DOM, so you're able to then create HTML elements and then append them inside. That's the only way that they can be visible. Otherwise you can create them, but the struggle was, how do I make them available? Like, how do I actually access the main screen? I eventually found out that player object is what holds information about the editor or certain aspects of the editor that you can override. So that was one of my biggest problems. But then after discovering that, then I had other problems. Working inside the editor, you already have a play button, right? What if I want to start my game from my own splash screen? This is what I wanted to do, but within the editor this is not possible. So I'd already created my start screen with all the buttons, but then it was redundant in the end because as soon as I press play, the game starts. So even if I have like a start screen that is in full view, in the background the game has already started. So depending on the kind of game it is, if it's a game where as soon as the game starts the enemies start attacking, then you would probably die while the screen is still on. So it's just not good work practice overall. The game over screen, that was also another thing. The main challenge was that when the game over screen pops up, it disabled everything. The character controller was no longer functional. So that's what would happen when the game was over. In order for me to then restart the game, I wanted to have a button to restart the game. When I stop it and then play it again, this game over screen would still be on. So by stopping it, it did not really influence the UI because this is operating kind of independent of the Threejs editor. So the question is, how do I also integrate that so that when I press play, it would then close it and open up the start screen as if I am restarting the game. So these were the challenges that I was dealing with, and it was not really quite easy how to go about it. And another thing was that when I stopped the game and refreshed it, then the player progress would be lost. So that was also a problem because I wanted to be able to start the game from where the player ended, which is sensible, but that was not possible. The only way to bring back the start screen was to refresh, and by refreshing it meant that all progress will be lost. So overall, a lot of these features I had to scrap because it was clear that this was not going to work. Even as a standalone application, it would not work because when you publish your project, it will include a JSON file and there will be an HTML file which will be like the main index file that will be importing your app.js, and it will also be importing the Threejs module file. So every other functionality that you had while you were using the Threejs editor would not be included. And now your code is locked inside of a JSON file, which is not readable. You cannot really edit that code unless you import it back into the Threejs editor. Only on the editor you can actually make changes to your code. So now once you publish, you really have no control over that project anymore. The only way to make it a standalone would be to copy all that code from the editor and then put it into VS Code and pretty much recreate the whole project but on a different platform, so to speak. So these were the things that I had to realize as I was doing this. And I had also some external files, modules that I created. For instance, for the particle emission I had created, when you publish it, none of those files are linked to your project. So now it doesn't play because there are all these different missing files that your code is trying to access, but it's no longer there. So in the end, it was really not working. I spent so much time trying to sort it out, but I just kind of decided that this is the end because I'd spent so much time working on this and I just had to put it to rest. So on the Threejs editor, you can play, everything works fine. Yes, one of the other challenges that I had was also with changing cameras. Yes, because I wanted to be able to change from one scene to another. So that was also a bit challenging, but I don't want to make this too long. So in the end, I put our project on GitHub and I also explain how to set up the project if you want to have a look at the code. But overall, I'm grateful for that experience, no matter how frustrating it might have been. So I hope you find this to be educational and worth your while. So if you've watched this video till this far, then it means that you clearly enjoyed the video. So please hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and hit the notification bell so that you can be notified. So with all that said, I just want to say love and peace. I'm out.